Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of FrostBound SMP. I'm Draft Girl 50, and that's really close in the face. So, the last two episodes we have been working on this little village. So this is the first section of the residential area. This is going to be what's considered, I guess, the middle class. That was my plan. So they have much bigger houses than what I'm thinking for like the actual port side. And as you can see, we finished off with the rest of all the layouts that we had, which were 7 of them in episode 4. And we have added all the windows and all the lanterns and all the interiors to every single one of these buildings. Now, again, the interior is very plain. That's simply because I want people to be able to just build in their own houses. Why do I have to take over that? Now, the last episode, I was talking about how I wanted to start doing some decoration inside of the residential area. So fixing up the cliffside, as you can see, this is on this side here, an example of what I would love to do. But I realized quickly after I was working on these houses, and as you can see here, I was starting to work on some of these decorations. Even this little bit of the waterfall was starting to get some more detail in comparison to what it was before. But as I was going through all of my blocks, I realized I don't know where anything is. There's a bunch of random stuff that's in this chest. Same thing with this one. And then if we actually go into my storage area, which is where I've been temporarily living out of for the last 4 months, it's a problem. I showcased this last time on episode 4. We're cramped. Now, the issue with this entire situation is not because of the small size that I'm working with, it's because it's just absolute unorganization. I usually, in my other worlds, I will say this usually, I am very organized. I have every block in every specific chest that I need it to be in. Unfortunately, I really want to start building quickly in this world, and so I negated that usual part that I do of working on a storage room before I work on other big buildings. So now, we're in this situation. There are so many shulker boxes on the ground. It's literally spilled out into this area. I've added more. There are more shulker boxes. I had to get rid of the shulker boxes that are down there because I was working in that area, and I moved them up here. They are around. I don't even know where I put them now. It's really bad. So the plan that I have is if we come up to the castle, as you can see here, there's this pretty big empty space, especially right under the throne room. Now, I didn't really have huge plans for this area before, but because of how I did the walls, there is an outside wall and a lot of open, like, interior here. So none of this can be seen outside, which actually makes this a perfect area for me to build under. Now, I wasn't sure what I wanted to build under here until I realized this will probably be where I'm like living in most of the time. I already have a ton of shulker boxes up here as well. They've also just been hanging out. So it makes sense that if I'm going to be building up here, I might as well be living up here. Today, for the plan is to start building, or at the very least, digging out this section of dirt. As you can see with this arches, I believe I talked about this back in episode 2, how I plan to have this be the entrance to the actual castle. So you come through that hole there, and I think I will be flattening this out a little bit more so that it's more even pathing. Like, this is probably going to be taken out right here. And then it'll just be a much smoother path down. I might even also get rid of this area, because I want the minimal amount of just like having to like step up and down, because most of the time people will either be on horses coming through here or on foot. So especially if it's on foot, you don't want them just constantly jumping, because it's already such a trek to actually get up to this point, just because of the location of the entrance here. Yeah, that used to be where the original path I was going to put, but then I realized I kind of need 2 towers for the entrance, and I'm making this at a diagonal angle, so this is not going to be really fun, but it'll work out. So I'm going to have to redo the idea of where the path is going to be. And in a way, I can make it a little bit more grand, because it was going to be a very steep path, as you can see here. But now I can give it a little bit of a more winding area, so that like I can make it 3 blocks for the path, or even 5 blocks if I can. When people come up here, again, they'll be coming through this big entrance, and then they have the option to go this way, but there's just this giant empty spot. So I want to add something to this area. Oops. And the best process I had for it was a storage room. I also want to make it so that it's very accessible. I want to make it so that I can easily get in and out of this place, because I don't really want to come to my storage room and then have to climb my way out of it and then do the same thing, because I'm going to be back and forth a lot. The big entrance right here, it would make sense to just put it right here. Now what I'm going to need, and I just quickly went to go grab it, is a bunch of shulker boxes, because we are going to be taking out a bunch of this dirt and stone, and I like to collect a bunch of this dirt and stone. The other thing is I got an iron ingot, because we're going to be changing this beacon that I've had here for a while into a mining haste beacon, because we're actually going to be breaking a lot of stone. Alright, as you can see here, we have a lot to dig out. I'm going to probably dig out all of this, or most of this anyway. I'll probably start. Yeah, I'll start over here. And so if we compare this with the throne room, it'll be right here. So that's where we're going to be working with. I'm going to put a torch. So I'm going to dig out this section going left. And it'll probably go all the way down to here. So it's quite a lot of digging. So let's get to it. So I've gotten a lot more of this dug out than before. As you can see, we started all the way up at that ceiling. And now we're several layers down. So I'm going to be explaining what I'm planning on doing with this area. I'm going to be doing an interior first and then worry about the exterior later. So I'm not really going to be worrying about the door frame or the arch to connect it to the outside. I'm just going to be focusing on actually the storage unit. So I'm going to be planning on figuring out where the chests are going to be placed. I'm going to be planning how it's going to look like while being inside the storage room. And then I'm going to be focusing after that on then the exterior, or how to connect it to the exterior. 3 out of the 4 walls are not going to be seen. As you can see, these 3 walls are covered already by an outside wall. So I don't really need to thankfully worry about that. Oops. I am going to be worrying though about how people are going to be coming into it. As you take a turn to the right, that's where it's going to be. It's going to be a straight shot through here, and that's what you're going to do. So I actually am going to be putting the entrance on this level, which is another 3 blocks down. So the entrance is going to be on this part, but I'm thinking about how I want it to look. So I want a high ceiling. Oh, I murdered a bat, and it gave me an achievement. We're going to ignore that. So I'm going to be having the ceiling be a high ceiling because I want to do a glass effect, where if you know what I'm talking about, it will do like, if you do layers of glass with a space in between, you get a foggy effect. That I really like. I also saw a video somewhere, I'm kind of forgetting, but I think they added a laze or endermites, and so it had a really cool particle effect coming through, and so I really want to add that as well, or at least try and add it to the ceiling. And then on the bottom part, I'm thinking of adding what would be considered like a fish tank. So as you're walking around, you just see a bunch of tropical fish, which would be really beautiful. For now, we gotta keep digging, so let's get to it. Alright, so I've gotten it to the point that it's going to be on the layer that this is going to be here. So as I've taken this out, this is going to be the main pathway, but I'm thinking of still deepening it. What I really want is I want a good foggy effect with the ceiling, so I think I'm going to have to bring the actual area down a bit just so that I can get that effect. So I'm probably going to have to dig even more. I'm looking at, what is this, 3 blocks more down? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll start at 4, so I'll dig out this area. And then after that, I'm going to need to dig out the section where the fish are going to go. But I guess I'll just focus on, for now, this part. Alright, let's get to it. So now that we have all of this dug out, we have a huge area to work with now, which is really great. I'm going to keep the diorite as like a layer in between, so this is not the ceiling, it's just like that split area to let me know the next layer above is going to be the top floor, and then the layer below it is going to be the bottom floor. So the diorite is just a splitting section. I might even just keep the dirt up there as well, not bother with change. The plan is to put black concrete for the ceiling at the top, and maybe even some frog lights would actually look really great in there. That's going to be a farm we'll have to make. For now, I don't really know what the plan will be for this place. I'm thinking I'm going to push it as far back as I can this way, but because of this wall, it's going to be a bit thin. This stairway right here is centered with the archway up on the top floor. So although it's not centered with this, it is centered up top. But I can't really center it with this arch just because if I do so, which is like kind of around here, it's way too close to the wall. So I have to move it over. And I feel like it would just fit well, especially with the back wall, but we'll have more space this way. So what I'm probably gonna do is do like a T shape. So if I grab some dirt blocks, so I've put out a little bit of a layer. I did cut a lot of this, so I might actually just give myself some more space to work with. I'm going to just keep this back area just in case I want to do a background drop. Again, I can change a lot of this along the way, but the main focus is obviously the chest space. So I want it to look grand, I want it to look pretty, but I also want to make sure that we're able to contain a ton of the materials, a lot of the, I have a ton of dirt, I have a ton of stone. I want to be able to sort it nicely. I don't know how many hoppers I'll add just because of like lag, and I don't want to completely destroy it for other people to be able to play on the server. And I'm going to drag this path over here. And so this wall is going to be the outside wall. So everything's going to come in this way with the inside wall. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to have a nice ring of pretty much just wall dirt. And then I'm still going to have these rows. So I'll have rows of chests. I might make it bulky so that on the inside I can have hoppers appear as well. So I can stack them. So because I have a lot of height, I'm trying to give myself a ton of height. So if I can just stack them, I might even add some ladders. But for now, we need to figure out what we want to add for the actual walls. So when I usually make a storage room, I normally go with the same colors that I'm used to. So it's usually dark oak logs, deep slate tiles, and green terracotta. And what I usually have is a 3x3, or I guess a 3x2 for storages. And then most cases I will, actually it would be popping out a little more. So what I would do is I would usually just have it like this. And then the logs would go up. So say for this space, it'll be like that. And then in the back, I just add green terracotta. And so this is what it would look like inside the storage. So you would have chests that way. But what we're doing is we're making this a whole lot more grand. So I still like the idea of this palette. I think I kind of want a more, funny enough, in a way, a swampier look. Even though this is a very pristine palace and the main colors are black, white, and blue, I kind of want to change it. I want to add a contrasting color palette inside the building, because on the inside, besides the throne room, I don't really have any other plans for the rooms. So what my thought process is that I want to actually just add more color inside the rooms, inside the hallways, give more space to imagination and creativity by just adding different varieties of options. Now, inside the throne room, you're trying to give off a idea. Oh, I hear a zombie. But you're trying to give off an idea when you come into this space as something that's very eloquent, something that gives off power, strength. That's why I literally have a diamond chandelier up here. So it's supposed to be grand, it's supposed to look like the outside, because most of the times people are going to be actually walking into this room. And even the path that's going to come up to this area is most likely going to still have similar color themes to the outside wall. So I want to definitely keep that hallway idea going. The first floor is most likely just going to stay the same color palette, just because that's where most visitors are going to be also in. For the second and third floors though, we're going to be looking at different color options. Even this bottom section here, we'll be looking at different color options, and so that's why I want to give myself an opportunity to just add more color, because I love blue, I love black, I love white, I love this color palette that I'm working with here, but I also just love adding more. I love being able to see how far I can take my creative side, and I love having different colors showcase that. So right now what I want to try and do is figure out how I want the chests to look. Since I want them to be on both sides, I'm going to have to do a 4. I'm just going to put that for now because I want to see how I'm going to be looking at everything. Let me grab some chests real quick. So in this case, I decided that I was just going to time-lapse this process just because this was a huge amount of brainstorming for me. It didn't make sense for me to just either cut it or to go through it all, just because even I didn't know what was going on during this time. And cutting it would be a little bit cruel because you guys should see how I do my thought process. Seeing as how a lot of this, I go into a time-lapse or a replay speed for most of this, and you guys don't really see the process or how I think. So I thought this was a great idea to show and I guess talk about how I do things. As you can see here, I tried with hoppers at one point to figure it out, and the wall got to 6 blocks in length at the longest. I did not like the look of the 6 blocks because it just got really bulky, especially as you're looking at from the corridor side. I didn't want to just have giant walls separating the pathway, and I kind of wanted to be visible, all these chests, so I decided to go down to 4 blocks, just so that it could have 2 double chests on each side of the wall. As you can see here, I was just looking at that zombie that was on the beacon, but here I'm just trying to figure out how much space I have. So with this being the main steps, I wanted to see how much corridor space I had. I had 5 blocks here. I didn't really want to lose those 5 blocks, so I had to figure out how I wanted to space everything out. Also had to keep in mind the wall to the right here. I want to make sure you could walk through it, or like in between the storage unit and the wall, so I had to shrink it a little bit. So I decided, so that I can keep a large amount of blocks, I can just actually put 2 chests in the front. And so that's what I did here, and in a moment I will be talking about my thought process afterwards. Alright, bye. So what I got so far isn't really much, but I want to just discuss what my thought process was with these. So as you can see with these pillars right here, this is going to be the entrance. So what people see when coming into the storage is going to be from this angle originally. Once you come down the steps, it's going to be from this angle. So you want to make sure when you're building that you're putting the perspective into consideration. Now, because this angle is actually very short in terms of these poles, we're going to need to go even higher. So what I can do here is I'm going to lift it up by 2 more. And to give a better idea of it, I'm going to actually make an arch. So I'm going to grab some dark oak, and then I'm just going to put these stairs here. Get some slabs, and then I'm just going to finish off with trapdoors. So now you have a very simple arch, and that's going to tell us where the beginning of our foggy effect ceiling is going to be. So once everything above this line is now going to have glass, and when you look under, you're going to see a particle effect. Now the reason why I'm doing 2 arches here is because I want this all to be connected. And as you can see, it's really tall. So instead of adding ladders just to get to all the chests, I'm actually going to split it. So the chests are only going to go to a certain length. As you can see here, there's going to be 6 rows, or 6 columns I should say. But with the addition of this, it's going to technically be 8, and then there's just going to be another 6 here. I'm even going to add another 2 here. So in total, this thing should be giving us 16 storage spaces. So some of these can have multiple storage of a certain item, or it could just be a limited variety. So each chest is not going to hold an individual object unless I have a lot of it. So stone is probably going to get its own row of these chests, while something like saplings or flowers, they're probably going to get 1 or 2 large chests for all of it. So the chest room does not have to be holding every single item in an individual chest, because that's not what's going to be necessary here. Alright. I only have a very limited amount of dark oak as well. I need to go collect that. The outside wall, this is what I have so far for the outside wall, but I'm going to actually change it up because we're not going to be really needing chests on the outside. I feel like we can get away without needing that, but there still needs to be a design for the outside. So the wood pillars are going to be in place still. I'm probably just going to make it go by 5. It really just depends on how much space I have from this point to the end point over there. Same thing with this one. This is a 5 space, so hopefully it'll match up. Wow, 2 voiceovers in 1 episode. That's kind of crazy. Anyway, I just wanted to do another voiceover just because this process could easily be time-lapsable, and I can just explain how my thought process is working without having you sit through 10 minutes of me just figuring out what I'm doing here. As you can see in the first part, the wall was not split by 5 blocks equally, so with this part of the wall, I'm just trying to see if I can actually move it to make that first section correct. I did miscalculate though. I put the dirt blocks back a row instead of forward, so that will be affecting the layout once again, which I will be fixing in a moment. But moving on, I did manage to find what my mistake was and move the dirt blocks forward. Now, with this storage project, I'm planning on making this 3 episodes just because this first part is getting pretty long, and I have the second part ready to go. I just need to edit that, but the third part, I haven't completed it yet, and I will be needing time to work on it. So instead of having you guys sit through an hour of me working on one of these, you can just have like a 30-minute episode, and I didn't want to go too far after that. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in episode 6. Bye!